Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is an amazing event, and we're, looking forward to having an open dialogue with you tonight. We are actually going to start our program now. And first, I'd like to reintroduce myself to you because I know that we have had some connection before. My name is Simone Crawford, and I'm MAHA's Director of Homeownership Education and Operations. I want to welcome you on behalf of over 3,000 first-time home buyers who will graduate from MAHA's classes this year. I'm one of the co-chairs for tonight. And everyone, I would like to ask you to unmute yourself and give our counselor, Annissa Essaibi George, a warm welcome by clapping or using your emojis.
Welcome.
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 Thank you.
Welcome.
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 Me too.
Welcome.
Thank you so very much. So congratulations, Counselor, on your success in the preliminary elections. We thank you for joining us here tonight. I want to ask you right now to just take a look at all the faces for over 255 participants and growing that we have in the room tonight. We're hoping to go above and beyond these numbers pretty shortly. And I just want you to take a moment and just see all the people that are here with you tonight. I want to also introduce my very dear friend and illustrious co-chair, Leslie Reed from Madison Park. Welcome, Leslie, and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Simone, and thank you so much for joining us, Councillor Essaibi George. We're so glad that you're willing to participate in this important conversation with us. I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the format for tonight. And in a moment, we'll give you a minute to introduce yourself, and then we'll get right into the issues. But our questions tonight are all focused on actions that you could take immediately if you were to be mayor to narrow what we know is a huge gap in racial homeownership in the city of Boston. And we know that we need a mayor who's going to take this issue head on, one who will put not millions, but tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to work to solve this important problem, and one who will put the interests of people of color ahead of interests of land speculators or maybe large-scale developers and other international investment interests. So we're expecting you to answer us with a clear yes or no, and then you'll have a minute to explain your answer. We'll have a timer. I think you can see it on the screen. And if at the end of your minute, you're not sure whether you have a commitment, one of us will ask you to restate your answer. Toward the end of our 30 minutes together, we'll try to sum up your scorecard. And as you know, we'll be welcoming Councillor Wu after you're done, and we'll be asking her the same questions. It's our intention to publicize both of your answers in time for the start of early voting this Saturday. And then we look forward to continuing to work hard to getting out the vote right up through the second and taking on the challenges of this really important issue. So please, Counselor, go ahead. You have 1 minute to introduce yourself and say hello.
Thank you very much, everyone, for welcoming me this evening. It feels almost like a lifetime ago that I committed to joining you for this evening's discussion and forum. Right now, I know Boston's residents are struggling to pay rent, that our families can't find affordable, stable housing, and too many individuals are experiencing chronic homelessness. To tackle this crisis, we need to focus on solutions that a mayor can take action on. And I appreciate that you are focused especially on those actionable items. We need to create better paths to homeownership, investments in down payment assistance, more affordable housing and truly affordable housing, as well as support for our Office of Housing Stability, all while creating generational wealth. And so much of this plays an important role in creating generational wealth, as well as breaking down systemic racism across our systems and increasing equity across every neighborhood. Several weeks ago, I released my equity, inclusion, and justice agenda. I hope you've all had a chance to review it. And I will say that it has been informed very clearly by my conversations and the work that I've done with residents, not just over this last few months as a candidate for mayor, but over my time as a city councilor. I also want to say that that agenda is also a dynamic document. So please read it and form it, and let's make sure that we're able to do this work together. Those commitments are really a connection of the dots about how my administration would directly support and uplift Boston's Black, Latinx, and AAPI communities who have been disproportionately impacted, especially around housing. I look forward to focusing on today's conversation and the work that we need to do together. And I look forward to doing that with you as mayor of this great city. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Simone.
Thank you so much, Councilor Essaibi George, for that really great introduction. It's now my pleasure to
Perdón por la
shift to
interpretación de
hearing
español que apenas va a empezar.
from MAHA member Heather Moore, who will remind us what homeownership actually does for our families and communities. Heather.
Good evening, everyone.
Ahora va a hablar Heather Moore.
Thank you, Leslie. Again, my name is Heather Moore. I'm a
Hola,
mom
mi nombre.
and proud homeowner in Roxbury. It was important for me to buy in Roxbury, born and raised. I was fearful that I would need to purchase
Tenía miedo de que
because Boston was,
iba a tener que no,
still is too expensive.
Boston todavía es demasiado. Perdón,
Came up
apenas
when
va a
my
empezar
great
la
aunt decided
interpretación en
to sell my
español.
great grandfather's home. She was looking to sell to a developer for maximum dollar. But when I thought about our family connection to the house, I knew I needed to purchase it. It's been 4.5 years since I bought my home, and my mother, sister, and 3-year-old niece now live with me, which helps us support each other while my sister searches for her own home, preferably in Roxbury. Being able to purchase my family home gives me immense pride in knowing that I can hold on to family history while helping future generations of my family have a home to always come back to. Now, I'd like to introduce my fellow phone banker and MAHA member, Felicia Richards.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Felicia Richard. I was born and raised here in Boston. I left Boston in 2009 and came back in 2017. Moving back, I thought my biggest obstacle was going to be finding a job, but it wasn't. It was finding an affordable place to live. I applied for over 30 affordable apartments through the Boston Home Center, and every Metro List lottery option I had that I was eligible for. I lived with family and friends for as long as I could. Well, my time and options ran out on Christmas morning in 2018. I found myself in my car with all my belongings. By the grace of God, I was contacted on December 27th, 2 days later, for one of the lotteries that I had applied for. I now live in an affordable apartment. I later found out that there had been 2,700 applicants for just 27 units. Believe me, I am truly grateful, but it is time for me to move to my next level, home ownership. I want to get a home of my own and turn my affordable apartment over to someone else who needs it. Being in an affordable rental makes it hard to grow. I can't get a promotion or raise that would put me over the income limit for my building and still be unable to afford a home. I want and need an affordable home of my own. I want to thank you for two things, Councilor Essaibi George. Then I'll ask my question. First, thank you for your commitment to MAHA that within 2 years, you will triple the numbers of home buyers who will receive up to $50,000 from the city through the One Plus Boston program. And second, thank you for promptly fulfilling your commitment to MAHA in June that you would write letters to 4 bank CEOs urging them to join One Plus Boston. Unfortunately, those CEOs and others are still dragging their feet. So here's my question. We need a mayor who will be an ongoing leader and partner with us in bringing banks to the One Plus Boston table if elected? Do you pledge that you will be that mayor starting on day one? Now, please answer yes or no first, and then you have up to 1 minute to explain your answer.
So Felicia, thank you very much for sharing your very personal story and understand, and I know that your story is one that is replicated, duplicated, and mirrored across our city. The answer very simply to your question is yes, I can commit to bringing banks into the One Plus Boston program and will utilize my role, my capacity, my authority, my bully pulpit, my power as mayor of this city to make sure that we are doing that. The One Plus mortgage program is an incredible tool to help increase homeownership, something that will be and has been a major priority for my administration. I've committed to it clearly in all of our housing docs and have committed to it clearly in the forums and the debates in which I've participated in. As mayor, I will absolutely be a strong advocate. And in addition to advocacy, we need action. Banks need to come to the table to be better partners in this very important work in helping our city's residents access their homes. I also would say as mayor, I'll convene a working group of leaders from financial institutions to directly address that engagement in the One Plus mortgage program and make sure that we are financially empowering our city's residents to participate.
Ding, ding, ding.
Thank you so much, Councilor Essaibi George. We're so glad to put on our scorecard a clear yes to our first question. And now I'm really privileged to welcome Avalon Myers from MAHA to ask our next question. Avalon.
Hi, Counselor. My name is Avalon Myers. I took MAHA's class shortly after transitioning out of shelter several years ago. At the time, it helped me accept that I wasn't ready to buy. The class showed me the roadmap to where I needed to go to be ready. Since then, I have been striving hard towards my goal. Now I am part of MAHA's Stash program, for first generation homebuyers. My parents love me, but since they don't own a home, they cannot help me financially. I'm working 2 jobs, helping other families escape domestic violence. I'm so tired and I see my dream just out of reach, but I am determined to keep going. We're proud that Stash has become a national model for directly targeting racial disparities in home ownership. It is not a handout, it's a hand up to begin to right the wrongs of the past. We agree with you that Stash is a transformational program, but it could have even more impact. We want to help more first-gen home buyers and give them more matching money for their savings. If elected, will you commit at least $20 million to Stash during your first term? Please start with yes or no, then you have up to 1 minute to explain.
Thank you, Avalon, for sharing your story. And the answer is yes. In my equity and inclusion agenda, I've already committed to $1 million in my first 100 days and will work in partnership with all of you to work towards that $20 million during my first term. Home ownership has to be central to the work that we do, and making sure that we are working in partnership with the organizations, and MAHA is a lead organization that is focused on this work every single day. I also want to speak to your experiences experiencing homelessness, dealing with and struggling with the experience of domestic violence, and the work around homelessness generally across the city of Boston. As the city councilor, I've spent the last 6 years focused on supporting families in particular who are experiencing homelessness and have found themselves homeless due to lots of circumstances, and have started a special commission to work to end family homelessness here in the city of Boston. Housing is a critical component to the response that we need as a city, and I'm grateful to make this commitment.
Thank you so much for Avalon for your question, and Councilor Essaibi George for staying on point, on time. And yes, for our second question. We're doing great.
Oh yeah, we're doing awesome.
I am really pleased now to turn it to Geneva Cooper from MAHA for our next question.
Good evening, Counselor, and thank you for being with us. I'm Geneva Cooper, and I've been a Boston resident my entire life, and I've raised my kids here. I make a very good income. I'm pre-approved, I have great credit, and I have a substantial down payment. I was optimistic about my opportunities to buy a home in Boston when I started about a year ago, but I do need a mortgage, and I can't compete with developers and investors that are offering cash. They're buying up our neighborhoods, and regular people like me don't have a chance. I'm excited that MAHA is having these conversations with the city's Department of Neighborhood Development and others to fix the problem. The city would work with nonprofits to buy homes with cash and then immediately resell them to first-time home buyers like myself. So my question to you, Counselor, is, if elected, will your administration continue this work with MAHA, Madison Park, and other organizations to get this initiative, which is known as Compete with Cash, up and running this spring?
Thank you, Geneva, for your question and sharing your experience as well. I'm grateful for the opportunity to hear from so many of you that have had lived experiences. So very quickly, the answer to the question is yes. So you can mark your scorecards. And I think there needs to be particular attention paid to first-time home buyers as well as first in your family home buyers. I think that's a particularly special group of people that we need to focus on as a city. And I understand that this program has so much potential to create real opportunities for home ownership in Boston. And as mayor, I'll work closely with all of you to make sure that happens. I know that there's been a smaller scaled program in the North Allston community, thanks to a partnership between the Allston CDC and Harvard University. And I really want to learn from those experiences to make sure that we're able to take the best practices and the lessons learned to apply it to a bigger program and partner it with tools like down payment assistance and 1+ mortgage programs.
Well, thank you so much for that response, both to Geneva for sharing her story and to you, Councillor Essaibi George, for again saying yes to our agenda. We're so excited to be working with you. Now we're going to move to Dwayne Watts, who works with Madison Park Development Corporation, helping our residents to become homeowners in the city of Boston. Dwayne.
Thank you, Leslie. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Councillor. My name is Dwayne Watts. I work with Madison Park Development Corporation. And my question is, people of color in Greater Boston have a net worth of almost nothing, while whites have more than $247,000. If we are serious about doing something about that, we have to help people of color buy homes. Homeownership is the way most people accumulate generational wealth. Yet almost all of the city-funded affordable housing that's being produced is rental. And much of that new rental housing is for people with incomes that can sustain homeownership if given the chance. We are excited about your commitment of at least $100 million in COVID recovery money will go to affordable homeownership. That is a game changer. Given this new $100 million, will you commit that at least 25% of the city-funded affordable housing during your administration will be ownership housing?
So again, yes is the answer to that question, and it's a commitment I made, I think, to all of you many months ago, and I stand firmly by that commitment. I also agree, as a city, we need to continue to build home ownership opportunities, and that we're using these dollars to specifically go to not just first-time home buyers, but first in your family home buyers. We've got to commit to that as a city. And like you said, Dwayne, in your remarks and your question, in order to close the wealth gap, we have to make sure that we are creating those ownership opportunities, in particular for our Black families and our Latinx families. It is critical to close the wealth gap, to create those home ownership opportunities. I know that many of our city's residents who are in city-funded rental units are paying 70% of AMI, which equals $1,400 a month for a 1-bedroom unit. And if they're able to pay that, they're able to pay a mortgage payment. It is our city's responsibility, and mine as mayor, to be a part of that answer to closing the wealth gap.
Thank you, Dwayne, so much. And again, Councillor Essaibi George, for yes to an important component of our agenda. It's now my privilege and honor to introduce Ivelisse Rivera, who is a leader with Madison Park Development Corporation and a resident and homeowner in Roxbury.
Good evening, Councillor. My name is Ivelisse Rivera. I live with my two beautiful children in a home built by Madison Park, and I am now on the board of directors. Homeowners in lottery homes have restricted deed. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Homeowners, lottery homes have restricted deeds which are intended to ensure that homes in neighborhoods remain affordable for the next home buyers. We understand that, but we think the restrictions need to be reviewed. One example is that affordable homeowners are not allowed to leave their homes to their heirs unless those heirs fall below a certain income limit. We also want to review how much equity affordable homeowners are able to accumulate. If elected mayor, will you continue to work with MAHA, Madison Park, and others to review the city's restrictions on affordable housing, on affordable homes, with the intent to revise them within the next 6 months? Thank you.
No, thank you very much for the question. So very simply, the answer is yes, I'll commit to reviewing and revising those deed restrictions. And I will say very clearly, a lot of the work that I've committed to over the course of this campaign especially has related to the work that I'll do within the first day of my administration, the first 100 days, the first year within that first term. I will commit to all of you that within my first 10 days, so before Thanksgiving, that we will have an initial meeting to start this process. It's so important that we are looking at deed restrictions because they are such a powerful tool, especially as they preserve affordability and as they increase owner occupancy. They are important to this work, and we've got to start that review process immediately so we can fulfill that 6-month commitment. If we don't do it in those first 10 days, we will not get to it in 6 months. And we have to spend the time to thoughtfully plan that work for those revisions.
Thank you so much, Ivelisse. And again, Councillor Essaibi George, for agreeing that if you're elected to work with us on this really critical issue. And now I'm pleased to introduce Ashley from MAHA, who will walk you through our last 2 questions.
Hi, good evening, Counselor. My name is Ashley Garrett, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. So my grandparents came from the South to Boston for a better life, and they settled in the neighborhoods of the South End in Roxbury. Both neighborhoods were once a diverse, thriving communities in which my grandparents felt that they could call home. Now the South End is barely unrecognizable, and Roxbury, as well as many other parts of the city, are also in danger of becoming just like the South End. Through my travels, I've seen so many places lose their uniqueness because of their culture, and their people no longer feel welcome there or have been. In Boston, we have been flooded with proposals by non-residential developers who want to profit by building huge new facilities such as hospitals, universities, and buildings for the life sciences. We are not against development, but the development cannot come at the expense of residents like myself. If elected mayor, you have the power to decide whether to approve or deny rezoning, that each of these developments need to move forward. Boston needs a mayor who will require non-residential developers to maximize the investment into our city to create more equitable opportunities. As you know, we have a linkage fee to help offset the impact of new development. It funds affordable housing as well as job training. A study commissioned by the city in 2016 recommended the fee to be increased to at least $24 per square foot. If you adjust for inflation, the fee should at least be $26.28. Will you commit the first 100 days to increasing the linkage fee to $26.28?
Thank you, Ashley, for the question. So the answer is yes, and I appreciate you sharing your story as well. Some similarities, both my parents immigrated to this country looking for that opportunity, looking for a greater access to the future for themselves and eventually for their children. And I recognize and appreciate that linkage is a direct tool that we can use to lift up our neighborhoods and our residents through that development process. And now that Boston has greater flexibility to increase linkage and did so earlier this year, we need to utilize the different ways that we can better leverage that money to find and invest in programs, as well as holding developers accountable, as well as the city accountable to the work that they're doing. I believe that there is a real opportunity to increase that linkage to that dollar amount, and I'm committed to working towards it. I do want to make sure that we are very much aware of the impacts of COVID in the last 20 months on our commercial marketplace. I talked about this with you all in length beforehand and want to remain consistent to aiming for that goal. So the answer is yes, but we've got to look at the implications on the commercial market.
Thank you. So I completely understand you. However, I do know that Boston is a hub for research and development, hospitals and universities that have consistently been part of our community and will continue to be consistently a part of our community. And those places are continuing to grow. My last question for you is that there is a loophole in the linkage law. And so to ensure that our communities are protected, right now, the city is allowing developers to lock in linkage fees when they first propose building, even if the build out is planned many years in advance. This does not make any sense, especially as our city continues to grow and more people want to be a part of the hub. In June, you committed to fixing this. Now, if elected mayor, will your administration, at least in the first 100 days, work with MAHA and Madison Park Development to immediately fix this?
Yes, 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 and yes. Those loopholes have to be closed. And across many of our systems, there are loopholes that exist in the development process that need to be shrinked and tightened and then zipped closed, especially around these linkage loopholes. There are absolutely steps that we can do, and I will take in my first 100 days to get this done. And I'd like to do that with all of you. You are experts in this field. You have spent a considerable amount of your time and your expertise focused on these issues and so many more. And you have my commitment to that on the closing the loopholes and working with all of you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor. We appreciate the time that you've spent with us this evening. And based on my scorecard, I have a yes for everything. I just want to confirm that that $20 million question is a yes. Thank you so very much. And as you know, we'll be asking the Councillor Wu these same questions starting in just a few moments. So we want to wish you best of luck for November 22nd. If you're elected, we look forward to working with you starting immediately. And we want to bid you farewell and good night.
I was certainly expecting that we'd schedule our next date as we did in the previous forum, but happy. And I want to, as I mentioned in the response to one of my questions, my first 10 days of my administration, that we set up some time to talk, to meet, and to start some of that very important work around those dollars that we need to invest. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice night. I hope you'll consider me for a vote on Tuesday, November 2nd, or if you vote early. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Night. Night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Hope you win. Hope you
I want to
win.
encourage everyone to stay on.
Thank you.
At the end. So do not leave. Don't leave. We're expecting Councillor Wu to join us shortly. So this is just the first part of our meeting together.
Okay.
And so I am not seeing that she's here as yet.
Do we have Kelly? Does she know if there's a way for Councillor Wu to know how to get in to find it?
Oh, here she is.
Yes.
I just called her.
Yes, wonderful. Wonderful. So can you just let me know when she is joined by both?
Yep. She's getting all set up right now. Hello, Councillor Wu.
Hello, Councillor Wu. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We thank you for joining us. My name is Simone Crawford, and I'm going to ask all of our participants at this time, if you're back in the mode of cameras off, to please just open up your cameras so that we can say a warm welcome to Councillor Wu as she joins us.
Hello.
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 Welcome.
Hello.
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 Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you. And you can just mute yourself again so that we can minimize all the background noise. I want to say congratulations, Councillor, on your success in the preliminary election, and thank you for joining us here. Here's the format for tonight. In a moment, you will have 1 minute to introduce yourself. Then we'll get right to the issues. Our questions are all focused on actions you can take immediately as a mayor to narrow the big racial homeownership gap in Boston. We need a mayor who will tackle this head on, one who will put hundreds of millions of dollars to work to solve this problem, and one who will put interests of people of color ahead of the narrow interests of speculators, large-scale developers, and international real estate investment firms. We expect you to answer with a clear yes or no. Then you will have up to 1 minute to explain your answer. If at the end of your minute, we are not sure whether you have made a commitment, one of us will ask you to state either yes, you are committed, or no, you're not. At the end of our time together, we will sum up using our scorecard. We'll publicize your answer in time for the start of early voting on Saturday. Then we'll continue working hard, getting our vote out through November 2nd. And I just want to take a moment here to introduce myself. My name is Simone Crawford. I am the Director of Stash and Homeownership Operations at the Massachusetts Affordable Housing Alliance. I am an immigrant, came from Jamaica, a proud holder of the One Mortgage Program, and a proud owner of my home in Mattapan. Go ahead, Councillor. You have 1 minute to say hello.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to organize once again and to create this space. I am very grateful to be a candidate for mayor of Boston, but also a city councilor now for 8 years, serving all of Boston at large. Mom with 2 kids in our public schools, and a daughter of immigrants who has helped care for my mom as she's lived with mental health challenges. And so for me, the goal is always to meet families where they're at, take down barriers, and use every possible power that we have in city government and community to make that happen. In my time on the council, I'm proud that I've worked in coalition with community to deliver big changes. We have passed more legislation than anyone else, and each time an instance of knowing what's possible when we bring people to the table and keep moving things forward. So I'm eager for the opportunity to bring that spirit of making bold changes from the mayor's office and doing so in partnership and community.
Thank you so much. And the next person you'll hear will be my co-host, Leslie Reed.
Thank you so much, Councillor Wu, for that introduction and for joining us tonight on this really important issue about equitable home ownership. I work for Madison Park Development Corporation, and for 55 years, we've been working towards equitable housing development in the Lower Roxbury and broader community. And so we're really pleased to be sponsoring this important conversation tonight. And so I am really pleased to now turn it over to Kiosha Kennedy from MAHA, who's going to remind us why this issue is exactly so important.
Good evening, Councilor Wu. I'm Kiosha Kennedy from Mattapan. At the height of the pandemic last year, I took the MAHA home buyers class in hopes to finally realize my long-awaited dream of owning my very first home. One day I said to myself, this cannot be my life. I work way too hard every day. I went to school to get a good job, also that I can provide for my children. I'm working hard to tackle my debt, pay bills on time, and save a decent amount for a down payment. I want to stay in Boston. the city that I grew up in, until I had to move to the suburbs as a kid. I want to provide a stable situation for my 3 babies. We need to stop moving from apartment to apartment every time the rent gets too high. My oldest, who is 16, has already moved 5 times. When I was young, my mother, who is and was very amazing at keeping our family housed and fed, struggled a bit due to high rents, and she had to move us from place to place. I want to break that cycle for me and my children. I also want to leave something behind for them when I'm gone. I hope they can start out with something more than what I had. When I lay down at night after another exhausting day, my goal, my dream is the only thing that keeps me going. It helps to keep me pushed forward. I want to introduce MAHA member Felicia Richard, who will tell her story and ask our first question.
Thank you, Kiosha. Hello, everyone, again, and hello, Councilor Wu. My name is Felicia Richard, and I was born and raised here in Boston. I left in 2009 and came back in 2017. Moving back, I thought my biggest obstacle would be finding a job. It wasn't. It was finding an affordable place to live. I applied for over 30 affordable apartments through the Boston Home Center and every Metro List lottery that I was eligible for. I lived with family and friends for as long as I could. Well, my time and options ran out, and on Christmas morning in 2018, I found myself in my car with all my belongings. By the grace of God, I was contacted on December the 27th of that year for one of the lotteries that I had applied for. I now live in an affordable apartment. I later found out that there have been 2,700 applicants just for 27 units. Believe me, I am truly grateful, but it is time for me to move to my next level, home ownership. I want to get a home of my own and turn my affordable apartment over to someone else who needs it. Being in an affordable rental makes it very hard to grow. I can't get a promotion or a raise that would put me over the income limit for my building, because I still wouldn't be able at this point to be able to afford an affordable home. I want and need an affordable home of my own. So thank you for committing that One Plus Boston will be a big priority for you as a mayor. I also want to thank you for promptly fulfilling your commitment to MAHA, that you would write letters to 4 bank CEOs urging them to join the One Plus Boston. But unfortunately, the bank CEOs are still dragging their feet. So here's my question. We need a mayor who will be an ongoing leader and partner with us in bringing banks to the One Plus Boston table. If elected, do you pledge that you will be that mayor starting on day 1? So please answer first, yes or no, and then you have 1 minute to explain your answer.
I'm so sorry. I just drove through a Wi-Fi dead spot. Could you just repeat the last part, the yes or no? Will I reach out to CEOs on day 1?
Okay, give me 1 moment. So my question is, we need a mayor who will be an ongoing leader and partner with us in bringing banks to the One Plus Boston table. If elected, do you pledge that you will be that mayor starting on day 1?
Oh, yes.
Okay, you have 1 minute to explain your answer.
We'll add 30 seconds. Happy to use every possible tool within the mayor's office, and I understand that a big part of that drawing on relationships, the conversations, and build leadership.
It looks like we may have temporarily lost the counselor, but I heard a yes. And so I'm going to
Can you all hear me? I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Did you hear my answer or no?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, we heard the yes part, which is what we were looking for. And so if you're elected, we'll look forward to recruiting additional banks to support the expansion of One Plus Boston. And I'm really pleased to introduce Avalon Myers, a MAHA homebuyer, to ask you our next question.
Hi, Counselor. My name is Avalon Myers. I took MAHA's class shortly after transitioning out of shelter several years ago. At the time, it helped me accept I wasn't ready to buy. That class showed me the roadmap to where I needed to go to be ready. And since then, I have been striving hard towards my goal. Now, I'm part of MAHA's stash program for first-generation homebuyers. My parents love me, but since they don't own a home, they cannot help me financially. I'm working 2 jobs, helping other families escape domestic violence. I'm so tired and see my dream just out of reach, but I'm determined to keep going. We're proud that Stash has become a national model for directly targeting racial disparities in home ownership. It is not a handout, it is a hand up to begin to right the wrongs of the past. We agree with you that Stash is a transformational program, but it could have even more impact. We want to help more first-gen homebuyers and give them more matching money for their savings. If elected, will you commit at least $20 million to Stash during your first term? Please start with yes or no. Then you have up to 1 minute to explain.
So I know that, thank you so much, Avalon. I know this question was asked last time, and what I had said then is still how I feel, that I will dramatically expand the program, but I can't commit at this time to exact amounts because I really want all the budget pieces to fit together well and to be in the context of all of the other programs that we will be working towards funding and standing up.
Thank you.
Thank you for that response. So I'm just going to record this as a no. You're not prepared to commit to identify $20 million to support Stash in your first term. Is that your answer?
I want to dramatically expand it, but all the budget decisions need to fit together, and need to be with clear plans to demonstrate the impact. So I can't commit to specific amounts tonight.
Understood. And if you're elected, we'll look very much forward to working with you to achieve this really important goal that we've established. It's my pleasure now to invite Geneva Cooper from MAHA to talk a little bit more about our next question. Geneva.
Thanks, Leslie. Good evening, Councilor Wu. I'm Geneva Cooper, and I am active with MAHA and currently looking for a home in the city. There are far too many developers and investors offering home sellers the full price of their homes in cash. And there's no way that home buyers like me can compete with that. It doesn't matter that I'm pre-approved and that my credit is good and that I have a great down payment. Sellers want all the cash deals. I even lost out on a cash deal, even though I offered to pay more for the house. MAHA has entered into early conversation with the city's Department of Neighborhood Development and others about a fix for this. The city would work with nonprofits to buy homes for cash and then immediately resell them to first-time home buyers like myself. So, Councilor, my question to you is, if elected, will your administration continue to work with MAHA, Madison Park, and others to get this initiative known as Compete with Cash up and running this spring?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You actually have a few seconds, 50 seconds to elaborate if you care to.
It's okay. I'm good. I'm good. Nope. All right. All clear and good.
Great. We like a clear and decisive yes. That's exactly what we're looking for. So thank you so much for that. Now I'd like to introduce Dwayne Watts, who works with Madison Park Development Corporation in helping our rental residents to achieve their goals of becoming homeowners. Dwayne?
Thank you, Leslie. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Counselor. My question is, households of color in Greater Boston have a net worth of close to nothing, while the median white family has over $247,000. If we are serious about doing something about that, we have to help people of color buy homes. Homeownership is the way most people accumulate generational wealth. Yet almost all the city-funded affordable housing that is being produced is rental. And much of that new rental housing is for people with incomes that can sustain homeownership if given the chance. Thank you for committing to MAHA in June that you will have a goal of at least 25% of the city-funded affordable housing being homeownership opportunities, and for reducing the household income needed to qualify to $45,000. Now that hundreds of millions of dollars in COVID recovery money from the city and state will be directed to homeownership, can you commit that you will reach your goal that at least 25% of the city-funded affordable housing during your administration will be ownership opportunities?
25% home ownership opportunities. You know, with all these decisions, I think it's important to set out clear goals, but I really like to make sure that I can deliver on what I'm committing to and promising. And that will involve having a team to deliver and scoping out the whole plan for what the different types of housing will be. So that will certainly be my goal. Committing before we build that team is something that I think will be difficult. You know, anyway, I want to stand behind what I say. And so I can commit to that being the goal, but delivering it will require having that transition and ensuring that we are setting up the programs to make that successful.
So just to be clear, your response to setting a goal that at least 25% of affordable housing during your administration would provide homeownership opportunities, is that a yes or a no at this point?
Yes to a 25% goal.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that response. We really appreciate it. Now it's my privilege and honor to introduce Evelise Rivera, who is a leader with Madison Park Development Corporation, to ask our next question. Evelise.
Thank you. Good evening, Councilor. Good evening, everyone. My name is Evelise Rivera. I live with my two beautiful daughters in an affordable home that was built by Madison Park, and I am now on the board of directors for the organization. Homeowners in lottery homes are restricted with restrictions intended to ensure that the home and the neighborhood remains affordable for the next home buyer. We understand that, but we think the restrictions need to be reviewed. One example is that affordable homeowners are not allowed to leave their homes to their heirs unless those heirs fall below a certain income limit. We also want to review how much equity affordable homeowners are able to accumulate. D&D has been working on determining the impact of rules limiting the amount of appreciation home buyers in affordable units can gain when they sell to the next home buyer. If elected mayor, will you continue this work with MAHA, Madison Park, and others to review the city's restrictions on affordable homes with the intent to revise them within 6 months? Thank you.
Yes, I will review them with all of these organizations. And we will, I think it depends on what the scope of the changes are in terms of the timeline.
So I just want to clarify, are you willing to make modifications to deed restrictions that allow transfers to heirs and increased equity for home buyers under certain circumstances?
Yes.
Thank you so much for that response. We're so glad to hear that, and we'll look forward to working out the, I'm sure, deep details with you if you're elected. And so finally, Ashley from MAHA is going to have our last two questions, which are really about making sure that your constituents who need affordable places to live benefit from all of the massive non-residential commercial development projects that are being proposed and developed across the city. So Ashley, take it away.
Good evening, Councillor Wu. Thank you so much. My grandparents migrated here from the South in the 30s and the 40s. They built homes in the South End and the Roxbury community. Both communities were once diverse neighborhoods, bustling full of businesses as well as cultures and communities. Right now, where it stands, the South End is unrecognizable, and Roxbury is becoming that way as well. Consistently, the city is flooded with proposals from developers who want to profit by building brand new, huge hospitals, universities, and facilities for the life sciences. Types of fields that have been consistent in the Boston area and have maintained business opportunities despite of everything that's happened during the pandemic. As the city is booming, we notice that residents are not being added into this equation. We are not against development. We want it, but we also want a seat at the table. If elected as mayor, you have the power to decide whether to approve or deny rezoning of each of these new developments that are being built. We need a mayor that require non-residential developers to maximize their investment into the community and building equitable housing opportunities. We can no longer afford people competing for the same affordable housing that we have now. Currently, we have linkage fees to help resolve this. The linkage fees goes to help paying for affordable housing opportunities as well as jobs. As a study has released in 2016, it said that the linkage fee needed to at least increase to $24 per square feet. However, due to the rate of inflation, we now are asking for the linkage fee to increase to $26.28 per square foot. Councilor Wu, can you commit to doing that within your first 100 days in office?
The first 100 days are going to start at a different time than the usual 100 days would. So I can't commit to a specific timeline, but I will move very quickly to make sure that we are engaging with community and just reviewing the study that was done to make sure that it matches the current economic situation that we're in. But I very much want to make sure we're maximizing linkage opportunities and supporting affordability.
Thank you. So I'm going to do the last question, and the last question also relates to linkage. As you know, there's a loophole in the current linkage policy. As proposals are filed, developers can pay for linkage at the time of the proposal and not the actual time of the build out. Within your first 100 days, can you commit to closing the loophole so that way that the linkage fee will grow as inflation grows and as the city grows?
I want to close this loophole. I think I just want to make clear, this format is complicated because the first 100 days are going to start November 16th, when it will be 2 weeks after the election. And the first 100 days will very much be taken up because of that, because it's not starting in January, it's starting in November. It's going to be very much building the team out and making sure we have someone firmly in charge of housing policy and the Office of Housing Stability and all of this. So I can assure you that the intent to move in this direction for policy is what I stand behind. But on the timeline, I can't commit right now to moving things in the first 100 days. I just want to be very clear about what the first 100 days will go to. And a lot of that will be building out the organization so that we can really hit the ground running.
I just want to clarify with you, Councilor Wu. So in June, you did commit to the linkage fee when we talked to you in June. And so now you are saying that you may not be able to commit to it based on the 100 days.
Yes, yes, for both questions, it's the timeline piece that I just know that because the first 100 days is kicking off while everyone is hitting the ground running, while, without any sort of standard transition, it's going to be a different set of constraints on the first 100 days than there usually would be if it started in January and there had been a whole planning period between November and January.
Okay. So, Councillor, I want to thank you, and I want to just say that I want to be clear about these two questions. One is based on your response. Are you okay with saying yes to 26, 28? It's just that the timeline is off. Is that the issue for that first question?
Yes, for both questions.
For both questions, the answer is yes. So would it be more reasonable to say within 6 months, or is there another timeline you'd like to propose here that we could work with?
I think so. I just want
Like,
to.
I like
I
you,
want to
Miss
be.
Crawford.
I just want to be really honest with everyone, and that's not. People hear all the time from politicians who come through, say what you want us to say, and then disappear. And so I want to be really intentional with commitments that I make all across the city, because there are conversations like this happening in, this is probably my 4th Zoom I've had today with commitments like this. And it's easy to commit to everyone right now before election day and say that, but I want to be able to deliver. So I'm just trying to be very upfront and honest about what I anticipate as one person. The focus is going to be building out a team so that the folks who are in charge of the organization at all different levels, cabinet chiefs, department heads, staff all the way through, are empowered to help make these decisions. And of course, there's a vision that comes from the mayor's office and comes from conversations in community, but I've been in city government for 10 years now. And so I know it's to make things happen. It's about the little nitty gritty details of implementation that I won't even be able to understand until we have people in there who can brief me, who can make it very clear. So I think our vision, our hearts, our goals are completely aligned. But on the implementation piece, I just want to be really upfront that I want to move things, and I want to move things fast. And that means that I'm not just going to promise something when I don't know all the full information on, is something going to take 2 months or 6 months or 8 months.
We really,
you can
yeah.
hear me. Yeah, I'm not trying to drag out or delay anything. We are running out of time, right? We're running out of time on every issue. But for me to just say this right here, I feel like does a disservice to the process, which really should be about building a team and then everyone knowing and being on the same page of how we move as quickly as we can. But I will stay in touch with MAHA and Madison Park and all of you along the way so that we are having this conversation in real time. So it's not just like, okay, I say yes here, and then 100 days later you come and knock on our door and say, why didn't this happen yet? You should be a part of building our team. Yeah.
We do appreciate and respect your thought as it relates to how the implementation works. So at this point, what I would do is to say that we are willing to work with you and to potentially start talking with you around the, earlier, sooner rather than later. So I'm thinking we'll get in touch with you within your 100 days to maybe set up some time so
Absolutely.
We can start have this conversation and get where we need to be. So right now I'm thinking that this is a no for the timeline, but in the spirit of what we're asking, it's a yes. Is that what I'm hearing? That you're willing to actually, once you understand the implementation process, be able to raise the linkage fee and to close that loophole?
That's right.
I appreciate that, and I thank you so much, Councillor, for being here. I want to just say best of luck on November 2nd. And if you are elected, we look forward to actually getting started immediately on the things we agree on, and we want to work in partnership with you on getting a yes to others. I appreciate you, and I thank you, and good luck, and have a great night.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for all really
Good night. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
For your honesty.
Good
Thank you
night,
for your
everybody.
honesty.
Thank you.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yes, thank you
Please
for your
don't leave.
transparency
Please
and
do
your
not leave.
honesty.
We just want to do a little bit of debrief before we go, so please stick on.
29 people on this call. 229.
And now we want to take a moment to review what happened here tonight. We know there's power in numbers, and tonight we had upwards of close to 300 people in attendance. Every one of you helped us get commitments, and we set ourselves up to be at the table with our new mayor. Let's look at our scorecard. Hilary, if you would please share it on your screen, or whomever has it. If not, there we go. Wonderful. So we have some work to do with one of our mayor, because the other one I know said yes and for all 7 questions, if we count 6 as A1 and A2. With the other, Mr. Wu, we have a no for number 2, if I'm saying that right. I can't see it. And then I am going to say we have a yes with a caveat for number 6A and 6B. Am I correct? Okay. Now, with organizing, we have power. So that is what we do. This is about nothing less than whether we have a place in our city or not. If we're not here, then nothing else these candidates promise matters. So what's next? Leslie?
First of all, let's all vote. Early in-person voting starts this Saturday. You can also vote by mail, or you can go to the polls on November 2nd. That is the most critical thing we can all do here, right? I think the other thing we can do is to continue to organize together, power in numbers. I think we have the opportunity to follow up with both candidates to demand at least follow-up conversations where we didn't get a concrete yes in those early days of the new administration. And so I want you to remember, no one knows who you vote for, but politicians know whether you vote and which neighborhoods show up in the polls. And so they're going to deliver to us when they know that we're participating and they're hiring or firing for another term. So let's have a really strong turnout to vote. And after the election, please join us, MAHA and Madison Park, for post-election analysis and a plan of action for what we're going to do next starting in November. I want to thank you all so much for being a part of this and navigating our technical challenges. I'm so sad that we couldn't be in person and that we had to deal with Zoom virtual realities, but every one of you has demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to civic engagement and the right to have a say in these issues. And I feel like it was very successful. We hope all of you will bring families and friends to help us continue to build our organizing strength going forward. And we're going to close the meeting tonight and conduct a brief evaluation in this Zoom room. And so anybody who helped plan tonight, please stay while we say good night to you, all of our neighbors and partners. Thank you so much.
Stay tuned. We'll be posting videos of this at some point on our social media and stuff, snippets of it, so that you can see it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. You all.
Thank
you.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a blessed night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.